Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
We can hear you very well.
Okay, thank you very much, Laia. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, attendees, for your assistance today in this virtual gather. I would like to thank you very much for being here. Thank you to the panelists, also for the specialists, and a special thank you for our staff, Laia, Mireia, Clara, Constantia, for this great job in preparing this session. I really am very happy because this session is really an example of the goals that we have as an association of 61 cities that work and cooperate together, how to make useful products like the one that we are going to present today. As a framework, I would like to highlight that the European Union has announced recently its plans to reach a cut of 55% in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. And of course, and also many Mediterranean states have shown their commitment to do so. But I would like to highlight especially the commitment of sub-state and local authorities to fight against the climate crisis and taking measures to it. Let me put an example of here. We are based in Catalonia, in Barcelona, mid-cities. The government of Catalonia, the City Council of Barcelona, and some other minor city councils, city municipalities have declared officially the emergency, the climate emergency. So in order to raise the awareness of the public, of the general public in this matter, and proving and showing their commitment to fight against this matter. So your attendance here today is also a show of commitment that you want to change things, you want to improve your cities. I know, of course, that this session is thought to our member cities. Thank you for being here, especially for you. But also we know that we have some friends from other institutions, so welcome you too. We know that mobility is a necessity. But on the other hand, we have a global purpose, which is make our cities more livable. So changing the pattern of the mobility modes, what we call inverted pyramid, first pedestrians, bicycle users, public transport, and the last, the car. Doing this is making available more public space to our citizens, for persons, for people in our cities, is what I like to call to how to democratize or humanize our public space. In this regard, we have to think that approximately per average, only 20% of the movements in our cities are by car. So taking policies for pedestrians and bicycle users is making policies for the majority, which is the goal and the obligation of the public institutions. Also, mobility is a measure for reducing pollution in cities, and of course is also a tool for local fight against climate crisis. On the other hand, public health is an obligation too. We need to improve the quality of the air of our cities. So it is a good moment for us to wonder, what is the role of urban mobility in the transport sector in the fight against climate change? Are we shifting the ways we used to move in our densely populated and touristic cities? Are we as local government representatives, mayors, and city managers contributing to this urgently needed transformation? I strongly believe that we need to present mobility as a right, what is called mass mobility as a service. There is not such a so-called right of using a car in the cities. If the majority of the people is walking and going by by bicycle and public transport. So reducing space for cars is working for the majority, as I said. So we have to ensure the right to move, not the right to go by car in our cities. Regarding these principles, mayors and technical advisors need examples of good practices and lessons learned. That is why we are making this session today. Of course, planning is needed, but whilst we are planning, we also need to take actions in place. The confinement of the pandemics has proven that cities can recover rapidly from pollution, improving air quality and taking measures, sometimes cheap measures, that can change paradigms. Therefore, MedCities is today glad to present to you an inspiring and enriching collection of measures designed and implemented in Mediterranean cities to promote sustainable, inclusive, and innovative modes of transport. This book, the Handbook on Sustainable Mobility in the Med area. We know that when we believe territorial and cross-border cooperation is key to any regional strategy to fight climate crisis. Mobility in the Mediterranean area is not an exception. So this handbook is a living proof of it. It has been produced thanks to hard work of more than 120 partners gathered around to project GO SUMP since 2016. The good news is that this community is continuing to its good collaboration under the new Interreg project led by MedCities called Urban Transports Community, which we'll hear about more, luckily. Cooperation across borders and fields is strategic to build Mediterranean message on the future on sustainable mobility. Learning from each other, I believe it's an advantage and it's key. We can learn much, not to have to invent the wheel every time. Learning from successes and learning from others' mistakes. So this should include the voices of all cities from all the shores of Mediterranean. We will see here some clear examples of that local voices of the Mediterranean area. Finally, I would like to highlight that we need that big projects become publicly known. Projects like this, like Urban Transports Project, these enormous efforts must be known. General public must know what the public authorities are doing with their taxes. I think it's an obligation for public authorities because these tools, like this handbook, these measures, are for them, are for the people. So it's good to have this in mind all the time. And also we have, as Valentina Ridolfi says at the final of the introduction of this handbook, we have the obligation of being useful. We hope this manual, this handbook, will be useful for all of you as an example to take measures, how others have taken measures in sustainable mobility. Once more, thank you, authors of the book and participants and panelists for being here. Thank you very much. Hope you will enjoy this.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Without further ado, I'm just gonna give the floor to our first speaker, Mrs. Valentina Ridolfi. And meanwhile, I introduce Valentina. I will ask my colleagues to show screen her presentation. Valentina is project coordinator at the Rimini Strategic Plan Agency, and she's responsible for all the local, national and European projects of this agency, including the MED project Mobilitas, a bit the promoter of this handbook that we are bringing to you. She was editor-in-chief of this guide, of this handbook, and she will give us some insights on what can we find in this guide. Valentina, thank you very much for being with us. And please share with us a bit what this process brought you during the production of this handbook, and what can we find inside. Thank you.
Thank you, Laia. Thank you, Joseph. And good morning, everybody. And thank you very much to MedCities for inviting us to present the Handbook on Sustainable Mobility in the Med area, implemented within the project Mobilitas, which was a project which intended to contribute to traffic reduction through introducing sustainable mobility policies and measures and solutions among tourists and local population with implementation of the SUMP, the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plans. I'll start with a short description of the handbook story. The handbook was initially planned as the result of our single project, as a result of Mobilitas, and it was supposed to be restricted to the topic of sustainable tourism mobility. Then, in agreement with the JS, it was extended to all the 7 projects of the horizontal community, urban transport community, and to the more general issue of sustainable mobility in the MED area. The challenge of realizing such a community outcome was launched during a midterm meeting in Barcelona of GO SUMP, promoted by GO SUMP, and it was immediately accepted by all the representatives of the 7 projects of the horizontal community. And our role, as Laia told, as the partner in charge of implementing the handbook with the Mobilitas, was to coordinate the editorial board and all the operations. How we worked, we have to say that we definitely turned a project output into a community publication. So we proceeded by creating an editorial board, participated by the representative of GO SUMP, Eurocities, MED Cities, UniMed, and by a group of project leaders of the projects of the community. And then, thanks to the availability of one of our partners, we met all together physically, good old days, I have to say, twice in Venice, at the University of Venice. And each partner came at own expenses. In our role as the coordinator, we had a clear idea of which kind of a product we wanted to realize, namely not a scientific handbook based on many technicalities and a specialistic approach and targeted to an expert public, but an agile and easy to read book, multi-targeted and conceived as an abacus of trends and solutions on sustainable mobility in our MED region. So we started proposing a general outline of the book on which we worked all together to share the best summary and define all the aspects related to the implementation of the handbook, such as the sections, the contents, the fact sheet architecture, etc. And each participant gave his own insights based on his specific role and expertise within the community. So we can definitely say that the handbook was the result of a co-design process in progress. We also agreed to implement an abstract of the handbook addressed specifically to politicians and policymakers that normally are known for not having much time to read a whole book. Then we started to gather all the contents, and also thanks to the connecting role played by GO SUMP, Euromed, MED Cities, UniMed, and last but not least, the JS itself, we managed to be provided with all the essays and photos, even from the projects already finished and not represented within the editorial board. And it was an extraordinary success, at least in my view. Of course, we share periodically the work in progress on the handbook with the editorial board, and we approve together the final version. The numbers of the handbook. So 9 months were the time needed to realize the handbook, like having a baby practically. And it is made of 5 chapters written by 38 authors, dealing with 7 modular projects, divided into 5 thematic areas, and providing with 8 sustainable mobility planning and policies and 19 mobility tools, measures, and infrastructures. Concerning the copies that we produced, we realized 300 and 300 of hard copies in English and in Italian version, and the same numbers of abstracts. Then the handbook was made available on our website, and it was downloaded by 492 people in the English version, and from 235 people in the Italian version, and also the abstract more than 100 versions downloaded for each language. So what about the contents of the handbook? It is divided, as I told, into 5 sections. These sections are dedicated, the first one to an overview about GO SUMP network. The second one gives some essays about general aspects concerning sustainable mobility. The third one deals with the citizens' engagement. The fourth one provides with actions and tools. And the last one is dedicated to a vision up to the future. Concerning the target, as I told, it is a product multi-targeted. So the targets were various policymakers, local authorities, professionals, technicians, and experts, or representatives of local and regional communities, but also citizens and city users. And the handbook was founded on 2 complementary pillars: mobility policies, such as the theoretical knowledge accrued by the urban transport community and the results achieved, and mobility actions, namely concrete measures divided into 5 thematic areas designed and tested in local context of our region MED. What about the lesson learned from this experience? That it was really satisfying, and also I personally, for me, was an extraordinary experience of cooperation, and I am really happy to and honored to have had the possibility to realize it. And so the lessons learned are very much concerning strength points, in particular the fact that the handbook was the result of a whole community and not only of a single project. There is the fact that it was conceived with a bottom-up and co-design approach instead of a top-down and desk one. The fact that the JS in this situation played a proactive role, not only a controller role, but a proactive role in supporting the project. The strategic role played by the representative of GO SUMP, Eurocities, MED cities, and UniMed. The cooperative atmosphere that accompanied all the implementation process. The result, it was, as I told, not a heavy manual, but an easy-to-read book with easy-to-find topics and tools. Again, the wide spectrum of essays cases tackled within the handbook. The graphic attractiveness of the handbook, also thanks to the great tips of Ermete Mariani, I have to say. Again, the legacy that the contents of the handbook may represent at least for the next European programming 2021-2027, and sustainable mobility, of course, in the MED area, but not only, also beyond the MED area. And finally, the possibility of implementing the handbook content in the future by extending the e-version or realizing a second edition. Among the weaknesses point, I have to mention 2 main points. The first one was the lack of translation in other national languages, at least French and Spanish, as a limit for a wider diffusion of the handbook throughout MED countries. And finally, the lack of ISBN reference necessary, at least in some countries, for a wider distribution within the network of libraries. So I think that my time's up. So I thank you very much for your attention. And of course, I am available for any question, curiosity, doubts, and other. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Valentina, for putting in a nutshell of 7 minutes, such a big and rich resource. We have now 10 to 15 minutes for a first exchange with Valentina. I would encourage and invite participants to either raise their hand if they feel like taking the floor, or post their questions on the Q&A box on the bottom of the screen. Let me check if there's any icebreaker raising their hand. Otherwise, I will kick off with one first question that that I thought about when I saw the let's say the structure of this guide, how the guide is structured. And I wonder what brought the editors and the producers of this guide to add as a chapter in itself the citizens' engagement. So something that probably is needed in all. Is it because it is transversal and needed in any process, or is it because you found that this was particularly visible and present in the solutions that you were gathering? What brought the editors to mainstream and to put citizens' engagement in such a first line position?
Well, because thank you for your question, really interesting, Laia. The choice was made immediately because the first reason is that in our role as the strategic plan agency in Rimini, we normally work in a participatory way in all the policies that we implemented and in all the projects that we realize. So for us, the participatory approach is necessary when dealing with urban policies and projects. But it's also a very important element concerning the SUMP implementation. I mean, the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plans, which are tools that foresee explicitly the participation approach. So for us, it was one of the pillars of our reflection. Also because implementing mobility projects and policies necessary us to involve people, citizens, as an active actor. I mean, it is a question concerning the culture of living the town, of how do you move, how do you decide to move, which kind of means of transport you decide to use. So citizens are actors really important for achieving the goals of reducing the use of cars in our cities and promoting more sustainable means of transport in order also to reduce the footprint and the CO2 emissions and to go towards a more sustainable environment.
Thank you. Is there any question from the audience? Maybe. I do have another.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
No, I was. Oh, yes. Clara made a question, a very strategic question. Unfortunately, yes.
Let me just read it out loud so that everybody can follow. So the question is: do you think the COVID crisis has revamped the relevance and need for the solutions presented in this guide, or on the contrary, has it left them outdated? To your views, are these solutions still valid in the context of today?
So I think so. I think so, but I also verified that it is like that because I had the opportunity to conduct a survey in Rimini, of course, the framework of my work. And for example, during the lockdown phases 1 in Rimini, the use of public transport drop off of 90%. So it is impressive. It is an impressive ratio, which cannot not to make us be worried about this. So we need to avoid in any possible way that the COVID emergency can represent a step back for the sustainable mobility. We have to go forward. We have to go over this emergency also concerning mobility, and having clear the fact, the priority that mobility has to evolve day after day into a more sustainable way, independently from this specific situation. This is my opinion, at least, but we have to come back to, because it's not obvious, it's not easy, because people are worried about using public transports, trains, etc. So they tend to come back to the use of cars. And so we have to be united and to work together to avoid this.
So would you say that the solutions in this guide, even though they were designed and developed in a pre-COVID context, do you think soft mobility solutions we can find inside the solutions that we will discover later in this session about the new road layouts to decrease car dependency? Do you think the readers and attendees will find it still applicable and relevant?
Yes, I think so. I think so. We have, of course, we have to wait to be out of this situation, and we still have some months forward us, of course, of uncertainty. But I think that the solutions gathered within the handbook can be definitely useful after this situation. But I also can see that people tend now to use in the phases 2 and 3 to come back to use public means of transport. So I think that just we have to wait and then restart also with policies and practice that are really clearly explained within the handbook. Another thing that I could mention, if I have some time remained, is because I think that our public today is mainly concerning MED people living in MED region. Within the handbook, we also, thanks to the colleague of the University of Venice, the UF University, we also tried to better understand which are the specific characteristics of our regions and towns, which made our situations much more vulnerable than other, for example. And they identified some characteristics, main representative for our cities, which are the urban structure, because the urban structure of our cities has to be was strongly influenced by the sea and the activity connected with the sea, of course. And of course, nowadays, what is left of the ancient sea-oriented operations, for example, fishery or other commercial trade, is an urban structure characterized by narrow streets and small squares. So for us, using cars is even worse than for other kind of towns, for example. And this is also true for those cities did not develop along the seaside, but share the same spatial patterns, generally tight and poorly adapted to the advent of cars. And the Mediterranean basin has many more cities like this than any other European area. The second pattern characteristic is the historical and cultural heritage. So a strong link with the sea and port activities means a significant influence played by different cultures and ethnic groups. And this interconnection and this network of exchange has determined the proliferation of several art and architectural styles, as well as the development of a major cultural heritage in the world. So we have a specific concentration of heritage, cultural and historical heritage. And then we are particularly fragile on the environmental level. And we have a high level of biodiversity. So our basin, the Mediterranean basin, is well known as one of the largest ecoregions, and it is among the most important ecosystems in the world due to its richness in biodiversity. And this condition, of course, makes it one of the most vulnerable one. So, of course, for us, from one hand, these aspects can be considered strengths from a social and environmental perspective, but on the other hand, other issues can also be seen as weaknesses and a limit for transport. Because the ancient urban shape is difficult to adapt to the current transport system, and the lack of available space is incompatible with mobility based on the use of cars. So it's not easy even to change means of transport, because also the improvement of more sustainable form of transport can be difficult in these areas. For instance, for cycling mobility, always due to the narrow streets, the tight areas and quarter. So for us, it's a challenge to work on sustainable mobility, much more for other European areas and towns. And that is why I think that we have to work together also in the next programming 7 years cycle program, because we have to exchange experience, to work together to co-design solutions and practices.
Thank you very much, Valentina, for that advocate message on territorial cooperation across the Mediterranean region, which I think our attendees will agree. The aspects, the particularities you mentioned are true for the north, south, east shores of the Mediterranean Sea. There's a question coming up.
Yes, I read it.
Yeah, so if there were a second edition, which, as we have said, the community, the urban transport community, will continue its work. So I will introduce some of the coming activities of this new phase at the end of the session. So you will know more about it. But let's put it in a hypothetical context. No, if there was a second edition, would you put the COVID-related impact as an important aspect of the new edition of the guide?
Yes, surely. I think it is not impossible to avoid it. But in general, I think we should introduce in a new version a chapter concerning risks in general, because we know very well that we are a world which can leave risks situation. We have some trends already well defined concerning health situations, health pandemic, but also environmental aspects, also demographic aspects, for example. So we have to, it is a very interesting question, because maybe among the weaknesses point should be introduced also this aspect, not having considered what, how much and how much risks trend can influence mobility practice, policies and practices. So I don't know if I will be involved in a possible second version, but if I will certainly, if I do, certainly I will align this aspect.
Mm-hmm. What would be, we still have a couple of more minutes, what would be, talking about the risks of related to mobility, what would be some risks that you see were missing from this first edition of the guide that you think, or you have thought later on it is worth sharing with with the community of mobility related stakeholders in the Mediterranean?
Many kind of them. For example, also tourism can be a risk. I mean, tourism is a good thing, no? In our region is one of the main, for example, economic sector for our economies, no? But if you think, for example, and then Fabio, we talk about it, and they have worked a lot on the cruise, for example, cruise practice, no, cruise tourism, and how this kind of massive tourism, which can affect all the cities, which can turn itself into over tourism, can be impacting on mobility, for example. No, this is like to see that one good practice, one good situation can easily turn into some situation that has to be attention very well for its possible consequence. And the same thing concerns health and other aspects concerning the life of people and the practice, for example, the attitudes that people have. So I think that many trends, if not risks and trends, can influence mobility very much. For example, also the trends concerning the micromobility, which are spreading in our towns. No, for example,
micromobility, including skateboards.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. So I think that mobility is a very changing topic, no, because it changes like our town are changing. Are changing, and we live, of course, in a era where into the town everything's happen. I mean, happen. Our towns are the fulcrum, the core of the contemporary life. And so mobility is one of the main important, the most important aspects in dealing with urban policies in general and planning.
And how our cities are shaped for the
and
future.
I think that one important contribution to make better mobility policies and practice can come from the data, the use of the data. The big data, of course, the open data can be really useful to help mobility to become more sustainable, more predictable, and so more plannable. And we also made an experience, a pilot action within MOBILITAS, our project concerning the use of big data connected, for example, to big events. How people move to reach the destination, which kind of transport means they use. And I think that can be also for next program 2021-27, also one useful tool to be applied also to mobility.
for the attendees that have not yet had the chance to look in the handbook, there are some solutions that include the use of big data and some of the aspects that Valentina was going through. So we encourage you to go find just as a reminding that this guide is available online in a very visual and easy to read edition, where you can basically find all the concrete practices. Thank you, Valentina, for your time today. Valentina will stay for the rest of the session, yes, and will be ready to answer to your questions at the end of the session in the final Q&A moment we'll have. But we thought it was important to go in depth and to present to you a couple of the solutions that you can find in this handbook, brought to you by their implementers directly. This will use it as an excuse to discuss a couple of topics that are highlighted in this handbook. The challenge or the objective of increasing available public space for people and decreasing the dependency to cars. This is one first topic, and the second one we will be discussing and discovering some experiences about is the promotion of soft mobility among locals and tourists. For a better introduction to these topics, we have invited our colleague Fabio Tomasi from Area Science Park, our technical partner at the Urban Transports Community Project, who will introduce briefly each topic and give the floor to the implementer of one example of practice that you can find in this handbook about the topic. The floor is yours, Fabio. Thank you.
Thank you, Laia. So, good morning, everybody. So, I would like to introduce the topic that will be later presented in detail with a practical application. So just a few reflection, consideration. Okay, just share my slide. Well, I would like to start by quoting some considerations that were made by Peter Jones from the University College of London on the evolution of mobility planning and sustainable urban mobility plans. So we shifted from a paradigm oriented to cars. Cities were designed to cars. That was indeed already a revolution, because previously workers had to live close to the industries they worked in. Later they have to live along the urban transport lines that could move them to the factories. Cars introduce a degree of freedom, which is certainly one of the benefits of cars. But on the other hand, we had to reshape the cities. Cars occupied all the free spaces in the cities. Squares were turned into parking lots, and the same occurred to the riversides that were very often transformed in roads or parking. Rivers were even sometimes covered with road streets in order to gain spaces for cars. And cars also lead to other problems, which you already know, which pollution, security problems, as we know, incidents, etc. So, starting from the 80s and later on, we work on mitigating the impact of cars on cities and citizens. The concept of sustainable mobility arose, so urban transport get again more popular, And the use of active or soft mobility was promoted by the use of bicycles, bike lanes, and later on by introducing the concepts of shared mobility. But this is what is not enough, and because this was just a mitigation actions. Now, what we are looking for is for a totally change in the shape mobility has and the way the city is used, with the concept of cities of placing. So getting back the place from the car and back to the people. I will show you a picture, a couple of pictures. So there's a picture that you probably already know that was a small experiment on how much space cars takes. This is the same number of people moved by car, bicycle, or bus. So another problem that we often forget, especially people forget about, is the problem of space occupied by cars, which we know usually is used just by 3–5% of their time. All the other time, they just stay parked and they occupy space. In any case, roads occupy space. We have to get back spaces from cars to the people. And there are a couple of pictures. This is New York. As you can see, the street has been closed. There were already some mitigation actions with some bike lane. And then it is back for people. And also this picture tells us something else. You can have not just to get the street back, to get the cars out of the street, but also taking the people back with some activities to be carried out. So it is important, extremely important to think about. Getting back to the Mediterranean, this is a picture from Palermo, which brings also getting back to the Mediterranean to the next presentation. We have together with us today, Ms. Asi Sarrakaroui, a mobility engineer. She's an executive at a major development agency, Thessaloniki. She's a director at the Urban Resilience Department. She has been involved in the Remedios project, a MED project that was also contributed to the handbook that Valentina just presented. And you made an excellent example of rethinking one road, the main road, one of the main roads in the urban center of Thessaloniki, to promote soft mobility. So I'm really eager to listen and watch to your presentation.
Thank you, Fabio, and Laia, of course, for the floor. I'm Anthi Sarrakaroui. I'm a transport engineer from the Major Development Agency Thessaloniki, and of course, on behalf of Major Development Agency Thessaloniki, I would like to thank also the MED cities, but also the handbook that Valentina presented us earlier, for giving us the opportunity to share our experience and publish it for the members, for the MED cities membership. So if now I can share my screen and start my presentation.
Please go ahead, Anthi.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
A second now.
Can I continue? Can you see my
Yes,
screen?
we see it perfectly.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So the title of my presentation here is the Participatory Planning Practices for Accelerating, Integrating Mobility Solutions in Urban Axis. That was, of course, our aim in the framework of implementing the Remedio project of Interreg Mediterranean program. Actually, the project approach was about facing multimodal streets and prioritizing people in this street design. And the initiatives were considering the streets as common places. We had the challenge to emphasize on urban communities congested by traffic. One of our main goals was the participatory governance and the horizontal condominium, as we called it within the project. And of course, to develop a tool for mobility decision-making that was the Remedial integrated modeling tool. In the case of Thessaloniki, the pilot area, or let's say the pilot axis that we worked on, was the Thessaloniki horizontal east axis, consisting of 4 main road axes, Manoli Andronikou, Βασιλέως Γεωργίου, Βασιλίσσης Όλγας, and Εθνικής Αντιστάσεως, for a length of up to 6 kilometers and 200 meters. This axis is a very important commercial axis as a continuity of 4 others, as I said earlier, that connects 2 main municipalities of the metropolitan area of Thessaloniki, the municipality of Thessaloniki, which of course is the central municipality, and the municipality of Kalamaria, and of course the axis that connects the cities with the airport. Some of the main road characteristics are the following. It is, as I said, one of the most important road axes in the whole Thessaloniki city. It is the northeastern entrance of the city, the main axis connecting to the airport, and then it's very interesting to mention that we have mixed uses along this road axis with important commercial activity, and of course the high density as a residential area across the axis. As I said earlier, it runs within the administrative borders of 2 municipalities. And finally, it is an axis with major historical importance since various historic buildings and points of interest are located along it. Now, concerning the density and the mixed use of the road axis, as I said earlier, those 2 maps can show the very high density along the axis. The blocks with the red color that you can see represent more than 500 inhabitants per block, while at the first zone that you can see on the left map, you can see that at the first road zone, we can find more than 21,000 inhabitants, while at the wider zone, there are more than 38,000 of inhabitants at the wider zone. Now, concerning the microsimulation model for traffic analysis that we followed. First of all, a microsimulation model was set up, including detailed information about the axis. We located all the traffic lights, all the taxi areas, the parking spots, and every other mobility and transportation characteristic. And following, we calibrated the model, including traffic data that were also available from the city, from other traffic counts available from the Thessaloniki SUMP, the Thessaloniki Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan, but also from traffic counts that were made and developed specific for the analysis needs. And at those 2 graphs, you can see the spots that we counted the traffic, and the intensity of the traffic that we analyzed along the day. What followed, and that was of very great importance, was the participatory planning approach. There were so many steps that we followed in this direction. First of all, we began with an open public discussion for the development of a holistic vision for the axis, and the model that came up was an urban axis for all. There followed a participatory workshop with stakeholders of the city for the identification of the redesign objectives and the preparation of the preliminary redesign proposals that I will show you later. And then followed an online public consultation to record the stakeholders' opinions and comments for the access redesign. Also, after that, we again developed workshops with relevant social actors of the city for the definition of the final proposal. And until the end of the project, we had the opportunity to have many open air activities like this one that was from a parking day that we implemented, but also other activities within the European Mobility Week. Those five with their alternatives are the preliminary proposals for the redesign process. As you can see, we, let's say, played with the reallocation of the bus line and with the introduction of bicycle infrastructure. Among the 5 different proposals, the selected one is this, that you can see that we actually decided to make a separate bus line on the right side of the street and the introduction of bicycle infrastructure on the left side of the street. What we did also was that we maintained the parking zone, but we eliminated the width of the street from 3 lanes to 2 lanes. That was the most important change in view to actually reallocate the public space to the other vulnerable users of the street. And here again, you can see the existing situation and the proposal. At the existing situation, we have these 3 lanes. We have a parking zone, as I said, and a bus line that is not separated from the other motorized traffic. However, on the proposal that you can see up on the up side of the slide, at the proposal, we give a separated bus lane to the public transport. Of course, we have some parking lots specifically for also people with mobility difficulties. And then again, very important is the introduction of the 2 ways bicycle infrastructure, as I said, on the other side of along the street. However, our solutions were not only about the maintaining and managing of the transport, but we had an holistic integrated solution in order to improve the public space and reduce the car dependency at the whole area along the axis. First of all, we introduced some parklets instead of other parking spots. We tried to make the parks that are available at the moment, but maybe in some cases they are private. We managed to set them as day parks for the public. Of course, the innovative bus lane system, as I said earlier, and the 2-way bike lane. And then again, we tried within green solutions to improve the neighborhood's microclimate. And finally, introducing some smart solutions for the parking, for the information of the people using the public transport, for the monitoring of the system for the authorities, and so on. Last but not least, we tried to develop friendly streets to reach the metro stations and also the sea transportation stations along the sea, which is also in the framework of another project that we are implementing. Finally, our results and future steps can be summarized in those 3 very important, however, points, I would say. We managed to establish a city consortium for all the next steps and the implementation actions, exploiting funding opportunities. So within this city, with the help of this city consortium, we had the chance to exploit the funding opportunities and make some applications in this direction. Then again, we undersigned MOU between authorities, city organization, scientific experts, and social actors, of course, because still the engagement of the people or the social actors is a very important factor. And finally, we are very much working on the knowledge transferring of our experience at local level with other municipalities through the publication of a MED, as we call it, Urban Access Methodology Guide, in which we introduce this participatory redesign model and methodological guide for accelerating and integrating solutions for urban communities congested by traffic. That was from me. Thank you very much. And of course, I'm open to any questions whenever it is according to the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I think you perfectly described the complexity of redesigning main streets, and I appreciate your holistic approach. Thank you. So we can move to the next topic, which in the Mediterranean area is extremely relevant, which is promoting soft mobility for local destination, in tourist destination. Tourism, as we know, is very important for our economy. In many cities, is the main, or highlands, not just cities, is the main activities. It brings jobs, wealth, and so it's something extremely important. But as some side effect, as we can see from the slide, overcrowded, overtourism, that has been mentioned at the beginning of the conference, is a major issue, especially at these times, as highlighted that over-tourism, mass tourism, is a problem also in terms of health and safety. So perhaps this is a good option to rethinking tourism and or rethinking the mobility associated to tourism. Planning mobility in tourist destination is a challenge because it brings some problems specific of the tourism. There's a trade-off between, very often there's a trade-off between the needs of citizens and tourists. Sometimes planners have the feeling that if they promote services for tourists, they could reduce the quality of life of citizens, and whereas as if tourists and citizens are fighting for spacing and public transport, parking lots, and other mobility services. Then there's the other key problem of seasonality. In many areas of the Mediterranean, tourism is just for 3 months. And then should we build infrastructure that is used just for 3 months? And the point is also raising the problem of investments in mobility infrastructure. Then there's the issues of keeping the city attractive, especially in case of cruise ships. Cruise ships can move from one port to another, or even from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean Sea in just one season. So it is important to identify solutions that on one hand improve the quality of life of citizens, and on the other keep the tourist industry working in order not to have an economic backlash in the city. So I hope that the next presentations made by Ms. Carolina Navarro, an industrial engineer with a master's degree in ports management and intermodal transport, can help us. She's working at the Foundation Valencia Port since 2007, and she's the manager of the city port area and of the mobility and cruises area. She has participated in a lot of projects, national and international, in the field of logistic and intermodal transport, with the aim of promoting more sustainable modes of transport, contributing to mitigate climate change. Among these, there's the MED project Support that also contributed to the handbook, and you did something very interesting that I hope you can share with all the other participants. So, Carolina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Fabio, and I want to thank MedCities for organizing this interesting conference and for inviting me. As Fabio said, we took part of the handbook, sharing the experience that we developed in the framework of SUMP project that I'm going to introduce briefly during my intervention. I'm going to share my screen.
We can see your screen, but not the presentation.
Yeah,
Carolina.
yeah. I don't know why it's not working.
You can open first the presentation of the PowerPoint and then share it. Yeah, like this.
Yeah, because
perfect.
It
We
was
can see
open.
it.
Yeah. As Fabio said, I'm going to talk about self-mobility measures that we take in the port of Valencia. I'm going to focus the presentation on the measures that some of them that we tested and developed on the framework of SUMP project. As we have only 10 minutes, I have made a very brief summary, but at the end I will leave my email because also in the handbook, these measures are summarized, but if someone wants to talk in detail about some of them specifically, I'm at your disposal. The measures that I'm going to talk to are part of the project SUMP, that is a sustainable urban mobility in MED port cities. That is something specific from SUMP that is focused not only in MED cities, but also in cities with port. That is the case of Valencia. The objectives of the project were to improving sustainable mobility planning capacities of the public sector, promoting the concept of sustainable urban mobility plans, integrating the sustainability approach within the long-term mobility planning of the port cities through the adoption of an update of our sustainable urban mobility plans, and providing a specific and efficient low-carbon mobility alternative to MED port cities and for citizens. The project ended last June and started on February 2017. It has a budget around 2 million euros, and it was under the umbrella of Interreg MED program projects, and the type of the project was testing. In this project, took part 8 cities belonging to 6 countries. In total, we were 10 partners, mainly municipalities, as you can see in the below in the slide, and also some research centers, as Fundación Valencia Port. On all of them developed some pilots, and also they update or develop for the first time sustainable urban mobility plans. The cities are Valencia, Koper, Kotor, Durres, Igumenitsa, and Limassol. Mainly the pilots were dealing with the extension of the creation of bike lanes, also the implementation of some bike sharing systems. In Limassol, they developed a simulation of maritime transport system. We also include a pilot in order to test carpooling for port workers. all of us elaborate our sustainable urban mobility plans. And also there was a pilot in Cooper dealing with infomobility to promote public transport. In order to explain you a little bit about our own context in Valencia, one of the pilot areas of Sumport, as Fabio has introduced, port cities has a specific problems different from cities without ports. In our case, Valencia Port is the first port in container traffic in Spain. Is the second one this year. It was the first one when we were in Sumport, but this year is the second in the MED area and the fifth in Europe. When we talk about containers, that means around 5 million of TEUs by year, and in total traffic, because we manage other kind of traffic, not only container, we manage more than 40 millions of tons. That means that we are managing a lot of traffic of goods daily in the port. That means that we have a lot of trucks entering and exiting to the port. We have around 5,000 of trucks every day on the port, and then we have to deal with this traffic. Also, we have the ships that come to the port of Valencia with all these goods. That mean that they also are pollutants to the city. And also, to manage all this activity, we have workers. And also, we have a special traffic that, as Fabio said, is the cruise passenger. During the last years, the Port of Valencia has grown on the cruise passengers number. And that means that we have to implement measures to decrease the impact of this traffic to the city. Because this is a specific tourist that spends only few hours on the city, and normally they go to the main places, the main touristic places in a big group of people. That means that sometimes the feeling of the citizens is that this is overcrowding the city. And we have some complaints in some, not in Valencia yet, but in another port cities, we are hearing a lot of complaints from the citizens. Therefore, ports and cities, the authorities from the port and the cities should work together in order to implement measures to decrease the impact of these cruise passengers, but taking into consideration that this kind of traffic is also an economic input for the city. And therefore, we cannot avoid this. We have to implement measures to fight against the negative impacts. Therefore, this is our context. And here in Valencia, in the context of Sumport, we implement, I'm going to mention 3 main actions, so 4 main actions that we did it. We know that the cities, depending on the number of citizens, they are obliged to develop sustainable urban mobility plans. And Valencia has its own mobility plan. In the case of the port, this is something volunteer that is not usual at the ports, but the Port of Valencia already adopted several years ago a port sustainable mobility plan. Within a Sumport project, Fundación Valencia Port updated this planning, taking into consideration all the knowledge that we acquired during the capitalization session, during the workshops, during the learning seminars that we have, and we with the coordination of the Port Authority, we adapted the new plan according to the new context of the Port of Valencia. I will make a brief summary afterwards. In the context of this update, we also carry out a wide-funding pilot in order to improve the pedestrian path from the cruise terminal to the public bus station. Another pilot was the e-bike sharing system that we implement for cruise passengers. And also, as I mentioned, we also tested a carpooling system for workers, because we tried to implement measures dealing with several things. The cruise passengers, but also people that come to the port to work every day. That is also a big mass of people. And that's the reason why we tested something for the cruise passengers as something for the port workers. Regarding the sustainable mobility plan of the port, as I mentioned, we have an old plan that it was elaborated in 2012. That contain a general analysis of the mobility of the port and identifying some measures to be implemented. During some port, we analyzed which of these measures were already and successfully implemented, which of them not, and we selected which we want to continue including on the new plan, and also based on our diagnosis, we also propose new measures to be implemented. To carry out this task, we try to involve the whole community of the port, because as you will know, in the port, in each port, there are several companies inside managing all the questions related to, all the things related to the activity. And therefore, we carry out a questionnaire in order to analyze the mobility patterns of the port, in order to know how the workers are coming to the port, if they are using the car, how many times by week, if they are sharing their cars, if they are coming by public transport. And also we ask them for proposals, for something that they will like to have to improve the mobility of the port. Well, to have the feedback, we offer the possibility to all the workers to participate in this process. Finally, we have more than 600 of replies. That is a quite good number in terms as we did online. The questionnaire was online. We also took count on the participation of an external expert to carry out a diagnosis about the wide funding strategy of the port, and we analyzed some key points, crucial points to be improved during the update of the Sustainable Mobility Plan. And finally, we review this plan, and we elaborated a new one for the forthcoming years. This plan is a three-level plan with seven strategic lines that are divided into programs, and each program has specific projects to be developed to improve the mobility within the port. This is a picture of the pilot dealing with wide funding for cruise passengers. We have a problem inside the port because sometimes the cruise passengers got lost inside the port, because it's quite difficult to walk around a port. It's not something beautiful like a city or a marina. Therefore, it's quite complicated, complex moving inside the port, and therefore we decided to improve the path between the cruise terminal and the public bus station in order to foster people to walk to the public bus station, in order to decrease the number of private vehicles going to the city center. The second action was dealing with the implementation of e-bike sharing system for cruise passengers. In this case, we offer to several companies, we make a tender to offer this service in the Port of Valencia. We defined the services before launching the tender, and we selected the most valuable offer, and therefore we count on the participation of an external company to offer this service. Finally, we implement this solution that was an autonomous and automatic parking for bikes. The bikes were electric because we are not so close to the city center, and therefore we wanted to offer electric because also the profile of the cruise passengers, sometimes they are around 50 years, and therefore we have to offer mobility solutions easier than a normal bike. We put 10 electric bikes, and also for renting the bike is easy because you can use your own phone, and also we put Wi-Fi to allow people to use the internet connection in case that they are foreign people that they don't have data during the stay in Valencia. This solution finally has not been implemented. We have learned a lot about this because we offer this service without making an alliance with the cruise companies, and now the cruise companies are offering e-bike tourist tours directly to their cruise passengers, and therefore it's easier for them to hire the services while they are on the ship than when they have arrived to the city, because once they are walking to go outside the port, they have sometimes they have decided that they prefer to not expend money on the excursion, or they want to walk, or they want to took the bus. Therefore, it was not a very successful measure, but we learn a lot about that. And I think that was the 3 measures that I have selected. I don't know if there is any question for from the audience.
Thank you, Carolina. For the audience, we'll open the floor for any question right after our last presentation now about Sousse. I thank you, Carolina, for sharing both the good and bad experiences. I think that is very interesting for other, that can be very interesting for other cities. Thank you for that. We'll now, so as I was saying, switch to our last speaker, to our last presentation. We are very happy to have Mrs. Sarrakaroui with us today. Mrs. Sarrakaroui is Vice Mayor of Sousse in Tunisia, and she's president of the Integrated Urban Development Program the city is currently developing. So this is an ongoing work. Meanwhile, I'll ask my colleagues to help me sharing the slides of Madame Sarrakaroui. Perfect, thank you very much. So, Madame Sarrakaroui, thank you for being here. Madame Sarrakaroui will be speaking in French. Here, again, for English speakers, you can select interpretation to English on the bottom side of your screen. Can you tell us a bit how this plan is being developed? Why was it firstly proposed, and what is the link between this plan and sustainable mobility and the future perspective for Sousse in terms of sustainable mobility measures? Thank you very much. Madam Sarrakaroui, we cannot hear you. Probably you have to unmute your microphone.
Oui, c'est bon. Hein?
Oui,
c'est bien.
C'est très bien.
Haut, hein?
Voilà.
Allez, bonjour. Medcité de nous avoir invités à partager cette expérience en matière de mobilité durable. Nous sommes un conseil nouvellement élu il y a 2 ans, le premier élu après la Révolution, et nous faisons notre premier pas en réalité en matière de conception, je dirais, de programmes de développement. Donc, notre expérience, comme vous l'avez dit, elle s'inscrit dans le cadre de la préparation du programme de développement urbain intégré de la ville de Sousse. Alors, vous avez bien posé la question, Laïa, merci. Pourquoi la commune de Sousse a-t-elle adhéré à ce programme, a-t-elle lancé ce programme? En fait, en tant que, je dirais, conseil, en tant que conseil et élu de la commune de Sousse, nous sommes convaincus que l'étude de la mobilité doit être menée en liaison avec l'aménagement du territoire, en prenant en considération les problématiques environnementales, principalement liées à l'économie d'énergie, la santé des citoyens, son bien-être, sa sécurité, sa relation avec l'espace public, ses conditions sociales et économiques, car la mobilité durable doit être avant tout un vecteur de progrès et de développement. Donc, nous avons, si vous voulez, intitulé la présentation qui suit du plan au programme. Un aperçu diachronique nous permettra de comprendre le cheminement de la commune vers cette nouvelle stratégie de développement. Le dernier plan, comme vous le voyez là, le dernier plan de déplacement urbain de la ville de Sousse remonte à l'année 2005. Il propose des solutions qui sont aujourd'hui obsolètes. Certes, il y a eu des tentatives d'aborder l'étude de la mobilité urbaine en rapport avec la mobilité durable, avec le projet d'un observatoire de la mobilité durable qui n'a pas abouti. Le projet OMUD était une suite logique du plan stratégique de développement de la ville de Sousse qui s'articule autour d'une vision prospective. Pour Sousse 2020, ville inclusive, vivable, avec un territoire équilibré, donc une ville accessible et bien aménagée, dotée de modes de déplacement diversifiés et complémentaires. Cette vision, aussi bien que les objectifs qui en découlent et les projets structurants établis, seront repris par le PDUI ou le Programme de développement urbain intégré de la ville de Sousse, mais selon une démarche inédite et innovante. C'est ce que nous aimerions partager avec vous aujourd'hui. Comme son nom l'indique, ce programme regroupe l'ensemble, on revient vers le premier slide, hein. Donc, ce programme regroupe l'ensemble des projets sous forme d'études d'envergure portant sur les enjeux stratégiques sur l'agglomération de Sousse et d'actions fédératrices à forte visibilité et impact rapide appelées Quick Wins. Ces études lancées simultanément. Ce projet articule donc des enjeux d'urbanisme, de mobilité et de gestion durable des énergies et s'appuie sur des systèmes d'information géographique novateurs. Donc, vous voyez la raison pour laquelle nous avons adhéré à ce projet. Ainsi, les 2 études majeures s'articulant autour de l'axe mobilité, le PDUI et le plan de circulation et de stationnement du centre-ville, tous les 2 sont en interaction permanente avec des études en relation avec l'urbanisme. C'est ça la caractéristique de notre projet. L'élaboration du plan urbain de déplacement urbain se fait dans un périmètre élargi à 12 communes, voisines de celle de Sousse, qu'on appelle le Grand Sousse. Parce que confrontés à des conditions de mobilité et d'accessibilité qui se dégradent fortement, ces communautés-là, nous avons pris le choix de faire le plan direct de déplacement urbain à ce niveau-là pour prendre en compte le déplacement pendulaire des habitants. Parmi les objectifs majeurs de ce plan, c'est se doter les moyens de promouvoir une mobilité soutenable, articuler la mobilité avec les dimensions d'aménagement et d'urbanisme. Donc, on voit toujours la corrélation qu'il y a entre les études de la mobilité liées à la mobilité avec les études liées avec l'urbanisme. Cette étude sera en interaction avec 3 études majeures, la vision prospective du Grand Sousse, l'étude préparatoire du PAU et le plan directeur des espaces publics. Donc, il y a eu la constitution d'un COTEC et d'un COPIL, des représentants de 12 représentants représentants des communes et des cadres techniques, les acteurs socio-économiques de toutes ces communes. Et là, c'est une démarche participative innovante et c'était l'occasion de signer une charte d'intercommunalité où tous les représentants des communes étaient là, et on va la voir tout à l'heure dans la photo de groupe, où tous les responsables des communes, les maires, s'engagent justement à appliquer et à mettre en application ces objectifs. Cette planification stratégique est appuyée par une planification opérationnelle à court terme, le plan de circulation et de stationnement pour le centre-ville de Sousse. C'est au niveau de cette étude que l'orientation du PDUI vers la mobilité durable devient évidente. Donc, vous voyez la photo qui est au milieu, elle montre la présence de tous les maires des 12 communes et en haut, il y a la signature du maire de Sousse de cette charte d'intercommunalité. C'est quelque chose de très inédit pour nous. Et les objectifs de cette étude sont, je parle bien sûr du plan de circulation et de stationnement, sont de déterminer les conditions d'accessibilité, d'apaisement du cœur de la ville de Sousse, d'accompagner les choix en matière des modes actifs, transport en commun, en proposant une organisation des circulations de stationnement évolutive, et en résolvant les problèmes actuels de circulation, en anticipant sur les problèmes futurs liés à l'étalement urbain, en assurant l'accessibilité des usagers aux différents modes, en optimisant les infrastructures routières, en partageant l'espace des différents modes et en adoptant l'aménagement de la voirie. Tous ces objectifs-là ont été mis en place suite à une consultation citoyenne, une consultation aussi bien des élus que des différents acteurs économiques de la ville. Et à l'occasion, j'aimerais faire part d'une expérience que nous avons eue pour aller justement identifier les problèmes et les enjeux de la ville, à savoir un tour que nous avons fait en bus, les élus avec les experts, et c'était l'occasion justement d'avoir un retour de ces élus par rapport aux problématiques de la ville. Ces objectifs donc font écho au plan stratégique de la ville de Sousse, aux objectifs qui sont établis par le plan stratégique de Sousse, mais la démarche de faire quant à la mise en œuvre de ces projets. La particularité du PDI est justement de mener l'élaboration du plan de circulation et de stationnement du centre-ville de Sousse en concert avec celle du plan directeur des espaces publics. Cette étude est régie par le souci de réappropriation du citoyen de l'espace public. Elle engendre une relecture de l'espace public en fonction de son utilisation par le citoyen pour son confort et en réponse à ses besoins. elle implique une réflexion sur les enjeux socio-économiques de la mobilité urbaine. Donc, si vous permettez, on peut revenir vers l'autre slide, celui-là, c'est le dernier, c'est-à-dire où il y a les cartes, pour essayer de montrer que dans la première phase de ce diagnostic des espaces publics, c'est-à-dire le diagnostic, ce document-là est censé indiquer les lacunes. L'expert parle de déséquilibre, de manque de porosité, de rupture, de difficulté à l'accessibilité au centre-ville. Et ces ruptures révèlent paradoxalement, selon son analyse, un potentiel exceptionnel, riche de projets. Parmi les principaux enjeux identifiés, il y a les enjeux des liaisons. Et là, vous revenez, s'il vous plaît, toujours vers ce schéma-là. Alors, justement, c'est un schéma, c'est une carte qui est récapitulative des orientations de cette étude et qui montre que les enjeux qui pourraient être identifiés comme sont des parcours piétons dédiés à des moyens de transport doux, incluant des pistes cyclables, la piétonisation totale ou partielle de certains tronçons de la ville, et nous voyons, bon, malheureusement, peut-être au niveau de la carte, ce n'est pas très clair. Nous avons ici, au niveau de littoral et au niveau de la corniche, une orientation vers une piétonisation de cette partie du littoral. Il y a, l'expert met en exergue les bienfaits de cette piétonisation, aussi bien de la corniche que de la création de radiantes qui vont de l'est vers l'ouest pour mettre en valeur des quartiers qui sont quelque part marginalisés, mais pourtant qui ont un potentiel patrimonial et culturel très important. Et donc, la piétonisation, ça permet de relancer le commerce dans ce quartier, les activités économiques et aussi de faire découvrir aux touristes un autre aspect touristique de la ville. Donc, il y a une connexion est-ouest de la ville aussi et qui permet aussi de dépasser ou, comment on peut dire, de donner une solution au problème de déséquilibre qu'il y a entre les quartiers situés au nord et les quartiers situés au niveau de l'ouest de la ville. Donc, abordée ainsi, la mobilité devient un vecteur de développement de progrès, condition auxquelles doit se soumettre le plan de circulation et le PDUI. Donc, en dernier lieu, j'aimerais partager avec vous une autre caractéristique du PDUI, à savoir le lancement d'actions qu'on appelle quick wins, des actions à forte visibilité, des actions rapides, à impact aussi très fort, et parler d'un projet qu'on devait avoir dans la ville de Sousse, d'une sorte d'événement qu'on devait organiser et malheureusement qui a été arrêté par le Covid, par la crise du Covid et par l'obligation de confinement. C'était un événement urbano-festif. Il est toujours en vigueur si jamais la situation elle s'améliore. Mais en fait, on devait organiser un événement urbano-festif qu'on a appelé Sousse Tetnafes. Ça veut dire Sousse respire. Il s'agit d'un événement Sousse en voiture. Et en fait, c'est une manière de conduire le changement vers le tronçon où, où il y a le projet de piétonisation. Et cet événement-là, c'est le moyen justement de réconcilier les habitants avec les autorités de la ville, de promouvoir la mobilité active par des activités cyclistes, de se réapproprier d'une manière inédite l'espace public en invitant la société civile à avoir des activités sur cet espace qui est dégagé des voitures. On propose des parcours cyclables, on loue des voitures. Et il y a une grande communication qui était prévue sur cet événement, sur les transports collectifs à travers des stands et des expositions. Il était même prévu d'exposer des bus collectifs écologiques. Donc, l'organisation d'un tel événement urbano-festif a une valeur pédagogique qui participe à la conduite du changement en vue de préparer le citoyen à la mise en œuvre d'un projet de piétonisation. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Sarrakaroui. Les participants peuvent voir à l'écran les coordonnées de Madame. De toute façon, je voulais rappeler, il y a plusieurs participants qui ont posé la question par rapport aux présentations et à l'enregistrement de la session. Ça va être bien disponible. On va vous l'envoyer aux participants au plus bref délai. Et comme ça, vous allez pouvoir reconsulter les différentes présentations de nos panélistes aujourd'hui. Je remercie aux trois villes, trois présentatrices qui ont partagé leur expérience. Nous avons un certain délai, donc ce que je propose maintenant, on avait un peu de temps pour l'échange avec les participants et nous croyons que c'est important d'avoir cet échange. Du coup, j'aimerais demander aux participants, aux attendus, de poser leurs questions bien à travers le chat, bien de lever leurs mains et on va leur donner la parole brièvement pour poser des questions. Je vois arriver, on nous remercie infiniment pour, j'imagine, votre présentation, Madame Sarrakaroui, donc merci beaucoup.
Petite correction, c'est Sarah.
Ah, pardon, Sarah. Voilà, let me switch to English. Sorry for the interpreters. We did receive a contribution by Fabio Tomasi about how the exchange of knowledge in the frame of the project locations in which Valencia port was part did show that there are many factors that can intervene in the success or not success of a practice like the one Carolina showed of the e-bike sharing. He posted other factors that were observed in other experiences within the same project, so I invite you to check that. Are there any other questions from the audience? No? Was everything very clear and self-explanatory? Maybe I would like to raise a question for our speakers, and you can answer if you feel concerned. How, if you had to give an advice to a city that was interested in the measure you have taken in your city, if you had to give an advice, what would that advice be? Meaning about how you have designed the solution, how you have implemented it. What would you yourself do differently, and you would like others to know how to do it differently? That's a question that I have. There's I have seen another question. I'm not sure now. No, okay. Yeah, is there any of the speakers that wants to answer to this question?
Well, I can't talk about the Valencia experience. I think it's clear that not all the successful measures can be implemented in all the cities, because you have to study the particularities, and that's the main point. You have to know your own context, because sometimes your citizens are reluctant to use a specific measure. Is something cultural sometimes, and therefore you have to study your context. You have to involve all the stakeholders that are going to go to deal with this pilot. I think you have to make a small pilot, selecting a specific area, few devices, few bikes, few streets to implement the measure, in order to feel the reactions and to test if the people are using and if it's successful. And that's all. Also, for our experience, I think. As we are participating in several projects, the cooperation between cities is also important, even though if in Valencia has not been successful, maybe it's successful in other city, but maybe they can learn about our mistakes, about the things that we did not carry out, or maybe they can learn how we implement it, because maybe some technical issues can be transferred to other realities. Therefore, I think it's a mix of combination of learning from other cities and knowing how are you facing in your own city.
Thanks, Carolina. Madame Sarah, vous voulez ajouter quelque chose à ce que Carolina nous a partagé?
Je pourrais. En fait, notre crainte, c'est exaltant, cette aventure dans laquelle on est embarqué. Justement, ce programme est en cours. Nous n'avons pas encore de solution pratique. Nous n'avons pas encore mis en œuvre ces solutions, comme je vous l'ai dit, à part des quick wins, comme la sécurisation de certains passages ou un plan de circulation des bus. Mais c'est très, comment je dirais, c'est peu significatif par rapport à nos ambitions. Et ma question à moi, qu'est-ce qui serait, quel conseil on pourrait avoir par rapport à des villes qui ont une expérience plus grande que nous en matière de mobilité durable? Nous sommes dans la réflexion, nous sommes dans les études. C'est vrai que ce programme de développement urbain intégré est très, très ambitieux, il est très complexe. Sa durée est de 3 ans seulement, c'est-à-dire dans une année, on aura terminé. Quelle est la solution à suivre pour que ce programme-là ne reste pas, comme c'est le cas souvent, des études qui finissent dans les tiroirs? Parce qu'effectivement, le reproche souvent qu'on fait à ce genre d'études, des fois onéreuses, elles coûtent très cher. Nous remercions le SECO, le secrétariat d'État suisse, qui a subventionné intégralement ce projet de 7 millions de dinars tunisiens. Il veille à sa bonne gouvernance. Nous sommes toute une équipe de l'UGP, c'est l'Union de gestion de projet, qui est là derrière pour veiller à cette bonne gouvernance. Il n'y a aucun souci de ce côté-là. Mais quelle est la solution? Quel est le conseil que vous pouvez nous donner pour que ça ne finisse pas dans les tiroirs?
I give the floor to any speaker that wants to react to that. No secret solution. Valentina, maybe you have a wider overview and probably you heard what worked, what didn't work, and what happened with the solutions that succeeded in reaching the final stage of their implementation. Maybe you can give some insights into that.
Yes, actually, we gathered in general solutions and policies in progress, so not defined yet. No, not just the most of the policies and tools that we included within the handbook were testing activities, such as normal in the frame of a European project. So I just can suggest having a look at this specific experience and cases, histories, to find how the different destinations are working on this, the different aspects. I'm going to include a specific list of our case histories within the slides that I'm going to share with you all, in order that you can have a quick overview on all the situations that we have analyzed and insert in the handbook. One thing that I would like to say, if possible, is that I really hope that in the new MED program, there will be the possibility to cooperate also with the countries of the north of Africa. Because for us, living and being in the Mediterranean area is impossible not to have an exchange with Tunisia or Algeria or other countries like it was in the past. So I hope that at least on sustainable mobility, there will be the possibility to cooperate together, and I am particularly happy to have the possibility to listen to experiences like the ones represented by Mrs. Sarrakaroui today, and I hope that we will be able to work together for the next future.
Thank you, Valentina. Antti, you wanted to speak?
Yes, actually, I would like also to thank the other partners and colleagues for sharing their experiences. Of course, it would be a very nice, it would be an extremely good chance for us to cooperate again for other projects in this direction. As also has already been mentioned, the COVID crisis gives us more floor to, actually, if we can see it as a chance in a way, gives us more floor to investigate on upgrading the public space and giving more space to people walking and cycling rather than to the motorized, of course, traffic. And of course, there is a very huge need of investigation on how to upgrade the services of the public transport. Since now, as we have also mentioned earlier, people have unfortunately shifted again to the private cars, and how we could upgrade the services of the public transport in order to upgrade the level of safety, and how we could, of course, include and integrate all this investigation at the existing handbook, perhaps at another version, upgraded and updated, and in this direction, of course, of sustainable mobility.
Thank you, Antti. We have, so for information, we will take around 10 minutes more because we have one very short last presentation to do. So if you, I hope you can stay with us for this final couple of questions we have to answer and this final presentation. Let me give the floor to Monsieur Merabet Farid, who wanted to share a question with the speakers.
Bonjour tout le monde. Merci encore une fois.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. J'ai tout à l'heure entendu l'intervention de Madame Sarrakaroui, qui a été quand même très intéressante de l'ordre du jour concernant donc la mobilité durable. Ma question aille directement vers la ville de Sousse, une ville touristique par excellence, une ville qui accueille chaque année des milliers d'estivants, nonobstant cette année à cause de ce grand problème du Covid. Mais dans cette généralité de mobilité durable, facteur de développement urbain, est-ce que cette ville s'est penchée quand même sur ce grand flux, cette masse et cette marée humaine qui chaque année fréquente donc ce littoral et qui donc oblige les autorités locales, les experts, les techniciens, la présidente du PDU à peut-être proposer des solutions pour, disons, contrecarrer et organiser et mieux recevoir ce nombre d'estivants en bus, en voiture, donc en bicyclette, etc. C'est cette question donc, que je veux poser à Madame et merci beaucoup encore une fois.
Laissez-moi, avant que vous répondiez, rajouter une deuxième question qui vient du chat, donc, qui demande par rapport aux difficultés que vous auriez dans le cas de Sousse, que vous auriez retrouvé dans tout ce qui est la piétonisation, le projet de piétonisation par rapport aux commerçants, de substituer donc les voies à trafic véhiculaires aux voies piétons, donc quelle aurait été un peu la réaction des commerçants. Et par rapport aux étapes, moi, ce que je vous invite, c'est de contacter Madame ou de télécharger la présentation lorsqu'on vous la partagera. Et comme ça, vous aurez tous les détails. On ne vous entend pas. Il faut… Voilà.
Merci Laïa. Je voudrais remercier M. Félide pour l'intérêt qu'il a porté à notre présentation. En ce qui concerne du flux des touristes et des soucis que ça pourrait occasionner au niveau de la ville, de la circulation dans la ville, en effet,
I think we have lost Sarah. Am I the only one not hearing Sarah?
No, we are not hearing her. Okay.
Voilà, mais maintenant, Madame,
maintenant c'est bon.
vous entend. Oui.
Là, je parlais d'un quick wins qui a été réalisé, celui du transfert du stationnement des bus touristiques sur le parking du musée. C'est un espace un peu, comment je dirais, qui est loin du centre-ville. Et on a inversé aussi le circuit du tourisme au niveau de la Médina, de sorte à pouvoir dégager le centre-ville et de sorte à pouvoir désengorger le centre-ville et à donner plus de confort aux touristes. Bon, l'expérience en elle-même, elle a précédé le Covid. On n'a pas eu le temps de l'expérimenter parce que le Covid est venu et on n'a pas eu cet afflux de tourisme dont parlait monsieur. Il y a peut-être aussi un autre enjeu qui est là à Sousse, celui de la création d'une rade, de nouvelles rades, c'est-à-dire de ce qu'on pourrait appeler une marina dans le centre-ville. C'est un peu la photo que nous avons montrée en début de notre présentation et qui est celle d'un collègue qui est artiste sur les bords et prend des photos magnifiques et qui est prise de la municipalité vers le port. Donc, il y a un projet de déplacement de ce port commerçant pour en faire une marina. Et peut-être à ce moment-là, il y aura des enjeux plus grands, celui de la gestion de cette marina et de la connexion qu'elle pourrait avoir avec la Médina. Donc, voilà, pour répondre, j'espère avoir répondu à monsieur. Pour ce qui est de l'autre question, effectivement, le gros problème de la piétonisation réside dans la réaction des commerçants. On sait très bien que, comment je dirais, de nos jours, l'organisation de la circulation, du stationnement, de l'occupation des trottoirs, c'est-à-dire des espaces publics, est un peu préoccupante pour la ville de Sousse. Je dirais de par quelque part un comportement post-révolutionnaire, parce que là, c'est vrai qu'on est à 10 ans de la révolution, mais il y a des comportements, il y a comment on peut dire, il y a des comportements un peu anarchiques qui sont encore là, et on est en train de mener des approches participatives, des cellules d'écoute, des ateliers de concertation avec des experts pour justement montrer à ces commerçants le bienfait de cette requalification, comme on dit, des voies. De voies, comment on peut dire, de voies où il y a la circulation de voitures, où il y a des encombrements, vers des voies piétonnes, justement, avec la création de zones de parking pouvant justement dégager les conducteurs de leur voiture. Tout ça se fait dans le cadre du plan du PDUI, c'est-à-dire du plan de déplacement urbain. Ce n'est pas du tout du plan de la circulation, parce que cette étude-là, elle va permettre de voir les impacts de la piétonisation en matière, comme on dit, de déplacement. Voilà.
Merci beaucoup. We have 2 more questions in the Q&A box, but unfortunately we won't be able to answer them today. What we will do is we will share these questions with our speakers, and we will include the responses in the email that we will send together with all the presentations and the material of the session, so that you get all the information in one shot. What we will do before closing, because we know we are 10 minutes late, is to make a short presentation of what is coming next regarding the urban transports community project that can be of your interest. And meanwhile, I will ask my colleagues to share the screen with a couple of slides. So let me just share with you some key information. So as you got from the first from the opening speech, the urban transports community is the umbrella project in which the handbook was produced in its first phase, let's say, so until last year, but the project continues, and the project continues for the next 3 years. We will be developing a number of activities. Just for reminding, the urban transports community new partnership, because we had a change in the partnership, includes MED Cities as the lead partner. We have Polis, a European association of transport-related stakeholders, Civitas, Area Science Park, sorry, not Civitas, CiviNet for Cyprus and Greece, Area Science Park, Kodatu, and Durres Municipality and Unimed in the edition of the news of the project newsletters that I invite you to subscribe to. In the frame of this project, or in the frame of the new phase of the community, we are looking at the transferability. So at the adaptation of some of the solutions you heard from and some of the solutions you can find in this handbook, we are looking at how concretely can we support new cities, other cities, in adapting the success factors and the key transformative factors of these solutions to their local context. As Carolina was saying, and this was a very relevant point, is that in any process of adapting or replicating a solution, we really have to look into the local context of the one that wants to adopt that solution. So it's not only we are not only looking at promoting these solutions, but we are studying the factors that make them interesting and adoptable by other cities. Concretely, the project, the Urban Transport Community will launch a call for mentoring mid-October. This is a call open for Southern European cities, but we have two spots for Southern cities outside the MED area. The idea is that the project will support 8 cities. You can have, you have the explanation both in English and French on the slides. The idea is that the project helps and supports 8 territories in through a mentoring support by the cities that developed the solutions to be adapted, and by an expert that will support in this process of understanding and adapting the conditions of the success of these solutions to the new context of the replicators. Basically, the idea is that around 5 main topics, which are the use of big data and information communication technologies in mobility, soft mobility, shared mobility, mobility in touristic destinations, and new approaches to urban mobility planning. These are our main 5 thematic focus. Around this focus, we will have a number of solutions that we have selected for their potential to be adapted and replicated. You can go to, yes, exactly. Concretely, what is going to happen from the 7th of October, we will start a series of thematic webinars to which I invite you to attend. I will share my contact details and the way to know more about this program at the end of the slides. We will be presenting each of these 5 thematic focus that I listed in one in each webinar, but we are starting with a webinar about the COVID impact on mobility, just as a first step into the discussion about the new trends in the sector, right? So this is happening on the 7th of October. Invitations are going to be shared very soon. But again, there's you can get regular and up-to-date information if you follow us, and I will provide the information for that. Apart from the webinars, we will be present at a number, and you can go to the next slide, at a number of international events that are happening very soon. You can still register for the Urban Mobility Days. The Urban Transport Community will be organizing a side event where we will be presenting the call for mentoring, some of these solutions and the topics, and we will have a bit more time to exchange and discuss about these topics there. I leave there the link. Again, we will share this presentation so you will have the access to register. Another important event where unfortunately the registrations are closed is the European Week of Cities and Regions, where will be, Auntie, they are not closed?
Sorry, I think they have given
Extra time?
Until 7 of October, but I will
Okay.
check it and I will text you right now.
Right.
I'm sure they given.
I received the notice that the registrations were closed last Friday, but if they are still open, we will change these on the slide and you will have the most updated information. Here on the 20th of October, we'll be discussing about the particular topic of sustainable mobility in touristic destinations and presenting some of the solutions under this topic. That's a bit it. And in my final slide, yes, here you have all the ways you can follow the news of what is going to happen. You have my contact details. I invite you to reach to me and to the team. For now, we are starting the promotion of all these activities, so we can provide further information. Otherwise, the newsletter, which is the first link in the list, where we publish everything that we prepare and that we do, is the best way to keep being informed. And that's it. That's it for today. I think we should close because we are a bit quite in delay. I'm just gonna give the floor to so Antti, you confirm that the registration for the European Week of Cities and Regions is extended to the 7th of October. So what we'll do is we will add the link to the slide so that you can access and register if you're interested. There's many sessions that can be of your interest. Just don't forget to register for our session in that ocean of interesting initiatives. Yes, before I give the floor to, first I will give the floor to our Secretary General, Giuseppe Canals, to close the session. And Giuseppe, if you can at the end leave a second for the final family photo we will do. And Antti just posted on the chat, sorry for the several information, that I guess the Thessaloniki Development Agency, you're organizing a virtual session during the European Week about smart mobility and touristic destinations as well. We will, if you want, Antti, we can add that to the slides and so that participants have all the information.
Yes, please.
No worries. So please, Giuseppe, I give you the floor to close the session. And before everybody disconnects, we will ask you to wave to the camera and we will do our family picture.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for all the panelists. And again, the staff, Laia, great job. And Mireia, Clara, thank you for all you being here. Thank you, the attendees, for being here. Let me just say a few words just to show you if I understood well everything you said. But just to say that the Green Deal, the European Green Deal, I think it's more valid than ever. It's still valid. The Agenda 2030 is still valid. The pandemic has not to delay anything. It's more valid than ever because health has to be gathered in hand with mobility, with quality air. Everything is interlinked, everything is connected. So we have to move forward to be strong. Maybe, hopefully, some of the mindsets of people have changed during pandemics. I think that public space use has been regained. I think there are things that won't go backwards. Some things I truly believe that won't go backwards. Maybe, of course, we have checked. We have seen that public transport have decreased. Yes, Valentina, in many cities, but maybe, and only data will tell, have increased the walking and the bicycle, because there are more public space available and there will be more public space available. So I think there are maybe two faces of the same coin, and maybe we have to move forward to that. So we need data, of course, as you said, as a summary. We need, and it has to be participatory processes. If not, they not succeed, because we all know that we have taken sometimes measures without people, and mobility arise low passions. So we know that is a fundamental right, and for that we have to treat it as that. And of course we have to make integrated processes and planning. So we cannot, we don't have to work by silos. We have to work interconnected: energy, mobility, economics, health. So this is another lesson learned. I think for me, these are the summary, the main ideas that we can go forward. So thank you very much again, and we'll see you in few days. We'll see all for sure working on improving the lives of our citizens. So congratulations for you two all.
Thank you very much. Just the last effort. I say, Mireia, we say hi to the camera.
We can say hi or bye. Okay. You can wave or wherever.
Great, and Mireia will take a picture.
Wherever you want.
Let me tell you, thank you for the interpreters too.
Yes, sorry, yes. Thank you, Tatiana, and thank you, Emma, for your great job.
Muchas gracias.
We can also add them if they want to be in with the video. I don't know. Yeah, okay.
Emma.
And
Tatiana,
I think, Tatiana is there. Okay, thank you both. So, okay, I take some pictures. So just smile, look into the camera, and that's it. Just let me a second.
Nobody will be able to say we didn't make the effort to make this warm and as nice as a physical session.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it okay?
Okay, it's okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Shukran, grazie.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Bye.
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 Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Bye.